Fireside Chat with Nguyen, the Great Curator, Part 2. Welcome to episode 5 of the Card Diary with Hobby Thompson, and I hope you enjoyed the first half of my chat with the Great Curator. We covered a lot of topics, but not the main reason I had him on, which was to discuss the behind the scenes of BTS. So, this is where more experienced hobbyists will get some good information. For example, how to set up as a dealer at a card show. And we actually talk numbers like the cost of a table and renting showcases, because I really don't hear many people talk about that. Because before finding out all of this information from Dan previously and, fleshed out more in this podcast episode, the chat we had, I thought dealers would literally fly with checking in showcases at the airport, when they would travel to shows. Like, if you drive, you drive it with your showcase, I guess, or maybe you don't, because in hindsight, flying and checking the showcases, that sounds ridiculous. And once you listen to this episode, you'll understand why. But I've also never seen anyone do that. When as a non-hobbyist, I've never seen anyone in an airport, like someone who's a dealer at a show, trying to check in a huge metal heavy showcase with glass. Um, the most notable thing that I can remember being checked at an airport is golf bags, and I don't golf, but I used to, and then my back. I won't get into all that right now. So anyway, speaking of flying, before we get to the part 2 of this fireside chat, just yesterday, so today's June 1st, where I am uh, dropping this episode. And just yesterday, I booked my flight for National, which I like to call Natty because we're good friends. It won't be my first time at National because I went back in 2012, but that's a story for another time. But let me just say, I paid about $280 for my round trip ticket with American Airlines. And when I was, finalizing the purchase, they asked me American Airlines asked me if I wanted to pay $10 extra to choose my seat. And listen, I'm somewhat of an experienced traveler, so this isn't news to me, the nickel and diming. Um, but I also never had a podcast platform to discuss this, and I would just make these comments to my wife. But $10 is such a number. It's so cheap enough. It's just cheap enough, I should say, to make me want to do it, so I don't get that dreaded middle seat. I'm a big window seat person, and I know not everyone is. And that's actually great because in life, we need both aisle seat people and window seat people. And of course, only complete sociopaths will actively want that middle seat. But so applying that concept to cards that just cheap enough. I mean, I guess I just wanted to say, whether you're a buyer, seller, dealer, when it comes down to that last $10 on either side of a deal, I personally, I've definitely asked myself, is it really worth it? Is it, sometimes it's fun to negotiate, but then, time is money. And, is it really worth it for just between $10? Maybe sometimes it is. But I think, it's definitely a luxury to be able to even have that thought, because that means maybe you can afford to go that extra 10. But we also have budget for cards and we want to get the best deal possible. But for these bigger cards, yeah, and not the small ones where $10 is like half the cost of a card, but that for the bigger cards, is $10 worth it? Is $10 is a $10 card even worth your time? Should you be in $10 cards? If you buy $10 cards, should you have just gone for that $100 card? Maybe you're happy with those $10 cards. I don't know. It's just something to chew on. Again, in your buying, not phase, because you're always buying, but like, in the buying part of your cardboard journey, is just, just something to chew on, and maybe I'll explore in a future episode. So, I'm gonna try and keep this under 5 minutes. Without further ado, part 2 of my fireside chat with Nguyen, the Great Curator. Whoever's listening to this, I hope you're going on a really nice long walk or jog. Uh, can we do a hard pivot to the reason we're here, BTS, buying, trading, selling? Would that be okay?
Yes.
I love a conversation we've had so far. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
So When you so just to call back earlier when you're talking about getting back into the hobby and like 2019 pre-pandemic, like you're buying up toys and things that you didn't buy, you didn't have earlier in your life. Let's talk about buying, then selling, then trading. I know that's BST, but whatever. Buying. When you said you were buying all these collectibles, were you buying them online? Were you buying them in shows? Were you buying them from people from Instagram? Like, could you explain your buying streams or avenues or platforms?
Sure. Just like everybody else, for me, the gateway um, place to buy stuff is eBay. So originally, I just started buying tons of stuff on eBay with the intention of keeping it as a long term hold.
Mm-hmm.
But the market was so crazy at that time that you could flip things within a week, a couple weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I quickly pivoted from being an investor to being a flipper. And I was flipping cards and wax and other things like that, and it was great. I was making a ton of money in the beginning, and then doing that online, right? I kind of pivoted from selling stuff on eBay to going to shows and setting up at
Mm-hmm.
shows because it was just a lot easier to not have to deal with shipping fees and things like that. And that's kind of like where I started before I pivoted to my next stage, which will be our next segment.
Well, so yeah, you kind of bled into from buying straight into selling and flipping and all that.
Mhm.
So maybe that is a good way for us because we're already like totally behind schedule. You recently recording this on in May 2023, but last week you were at the Dallas Card Show as a dealer, right? So I wanted to kind of have this be, I mean, when it comes to the infotainment aspect, this is definitely, at least for me, has been entertaining, but for more informative purposes, maybe we do get into a little bit of nuts and bolts and like dollars, but like, um, I mean, I guess you are allowed to talk about it because it's publicized online, I think. But like to set up as a dealer, how much does it cost? Like to rent, I think we've talked about this privately, but like to rent a showcase, like there's like these costs that people don't think about when they are setting up as a dealer, right? So,
Yes.
um, could you kind of talk us through, I guess, how the Dallas Card Show went from a sense of like, uh, however much you want to talk dollars and cents, but just paint us the word picture of being a dealer at a card show, please.
Sure. Okay. So real quick summary. The reason I wanted to become a dealer is when you walk around shows, it's tough. It's tough when you go up to tables to try to sell stuff. It's very tough. They have an advantage over you, the dealers, and they'll tenderize you. You're right. So that's why I
Mm.
did. And I wanted to sell stuff. It's very easy to go around shows and buy, but if you want to sell, you really got to be a vendor because you are at a total disadvantage at a car show, and that's primarily where the space that I operate. So I've been a vendor for like almost over 2 years now at shows, just been setting up shows across the country. Dallas is my favorite one. I've been there like the last year and a half or so, or 2 years or so, like that.
Mm.
It's considered the best car show in the country, in my opinion. So I'll just
Mm.
talk about the specifics, costs behind the Dallas show, but just understand that the Dallas show is like the top show in the country. So everything
Okay,
else is
so
probably gonna be way lower
before
than
you
that.
continue, eBay not an official sponsor, Dallas Card Show not an official sponsor, and before you talk about the Dallas Card Show, I did want to say Burbank Card Show is coming up where people are like talking about that being the potential best card show, and you're not talking about national either. But would you say currently, right now, and I don't think it's gonna be controversial or whatever, but like, are you saying that maybe from a vendor or dealer perspective, that being a dealer at the Dallas Card Show is better than being a dealer at National, for example?
No, national is its own thing. It's
Mm,
like you can't even compare anything to the national, but
okay.
the closest you can get to a card show, a national experience at a regional card show or a national card show would
Hmm.
be the Dallas Card Show, just
Got it.
because of how
Got it.
professionally it's run and the amount of people that go there and the amount of money that is spent there. It's a close comparison, but the national it's completely different.
So when you're saying it's the best card show in the nation, you're saying it's the best card show outside of the National.
Yes,
Got
better,
it.
better,
Thank you.
yeah,
I just want to
better
clarify
than
that.
yeah. And I've been
Okay.
around. There's some shows that I haven't been to, like Chantilly is one of them, but I've
Hmm.
been to Toronto, which is considered the national of Canada. I've been to Culture Collision, which is a huge show in Atlanta. I've been to
Hmm.
Chicago Spectacular. I've been to all
Mm,
the California shows. I've been
mm,
to Vegas shows. I've been around. So
mhm.
I've got a pretty good idea on how shows run and the different shows that are out there, and nothing really compares to the environment of Dallas.
Great. So thank you for setting that up and clarifying that. So now nuts and bolts, the floor is yours.
Sure. So when you go to Dallas, or let's just assume that Dallas is like a local show for you, right? Like you live in there, you can drive there. So when you go there, basically you got to rent a table. Table at Dallas costs $275 if you're grandfathered in, like I am. It can be as high as like 350 if you're just trying to rent it from somebody else. That's kind of like the price for that. Plus, you got to rent the cases. Cases are $50 for the entire weekend. The show goes from Thursday to Sunday. Okay, so that's pretty much the cost involved. But if you're traveling in there, you also have to factor in hotel costs, which can be
Mhm.
anywhere between $500 to $800 depending on the
Mm,
rates, and then plane tickets, obviously depending when you're coming from, plus food cost,
mm.
things like that. And then that's like the main stuff. And then when you go there, you're gonna have to have money to buy stuff too, because people are selling as well as buying your stuff. So you have to have cash on hand. But that's pretty much like the basics of
Gotcha.
how to get in there.
So two offshoot questions. One being, have you ever split a table, and do you get multi-table discounts? And just like, let's talk more about these 8x3. I think Dallas is 8 foot by 3 foot, right?
8 foot table,
Yeah.
yes. Um, Traditionally, I do split the table with a buddy of mine, Brian, Sunday League investor, but he doesn't go to
Mm,
as many shows anymore. So I've kind of like evolved into having enough inventory where I take up a full table myself. You
mm,
fit four standard size showcases on those tables. So usually I operate between 2 to 4 showcases per
mm,
table. But lately I've been kind of expanding that, but that's what usually people do. I'll touch on one point that you just mentioned. Do I split tables? A lot of people, when they do their first shows, they will
mm,
split the table. I did that too when I first
mm,
got in the game. And I quickly learned that you don't need to do that.
mm,
So I would encourage people, if you're trying to get in the game, the only reason that you want to split a table is you want to save a little bit of cost because you want to share some risk with somebody else.
mm,
But the real estate that you're giving up is more valuable than the half of the table cost that you're saving. Okay. And most
mm,
of these tables are like under $100. At a regular show, the
mm.
table is going to be like $50, $75, something like
Yeah.
that. At a bigger show, it could be up to $200. Some of the bigger shows are more than that, but most of them are like between, $200 or less. Just pay the extra money, because that real estate that you're giving up, you could put more cards there that are worth more than you're giving up in terms of cost savings. You know
Yeah,
what I
I
mean?
think that's a great point. And again, you're I've asked you on here as the expert, and I'm the person who's learning. I have dealt at shows too, and I'm pretty sure that in my first chapter or my first episode talking about BTS, I'll mention my experiences there. But what about what about the concern that if you are an early, not an early, but like, your first time dealing, you might not have the inventory. So can we talk about inventory? Like, when did you know that you wanted to? I know you said like, oh, I at a certain point I knew I wanted to be a vendor because I get better deals and it's an advantage. But can you talk to me about the first time you sold? Like, how did you know? Like, when was that switch from I'm gonna be a vendor now?
Well, when the time that I was trying to set up a local show here in California where I live, it was just basically I was tired of getting tenderized from the buyer perspective on the other side of the table, and I applied to
Mm,
get a table at a show. And back then, it was not easy to get tables. Like
mm,
I had to like kiss ass to get
mm,
on the waiting list and get approved to get the table. And once they said, "Hey, you're in," I didn't have a choice. I just took whatever I had and I set up a table, and I split the table with my buddy. Um, and
got
I
it.
had basically 2 showcases worth of stuff, and I put in just whatever I had at the time. You could put graded cards in, you could put raw cards, whatever, but you just fill it
Okay.
up. Um, but that's what I had to do because the opportunity came up and I took it. So I was just kind of like thrown into the fire with the wolves, or into the deep end, whatever you want to
Mhm.
say,
Mhm.
in terms of being a dealer. But that first show that I set up at, it was a small show in a gym, probably like 100 tables or whatever. It
Mm.
was a noticeable difference in terms of selling cards. It's like it was so easy to sell cards compared to what I was trying to do before, where I was walking up the tables, that's when I realized, hey, this is where I want to be. I want to be on
Awesome.
this side of the table. This is how I want to sell my stuff. And I've been setting up ever since then because of that experience.
That's really cool. So you've mentioned this term a couple of times, and for the newer folks, maybe the more seasoned folks would understand what this is, and if they've watched your content, I think they would know what this is. Could you please elaborate more about that term, tenderize?
Tenderizing is a term that I use. I make up a lot of words in the hobby. It's tongue in cheek. It's supposed to be fun, but basically it just means like negotiating with somebody, just trying to get a better deal, negotiating with them, beating them down a little bit, tenderizing them so that you can get the best deal possible.
You know, um, Early on in my Denny cards social media, I had the Denny's logo, which I never got, a cease and desist letter for. And I think you were candidly concerned about my well being with that. But I love food. I love fast casual and all that. I think I'm going to start incorporating more food terms. And I do love that you use the word tenderize. But here's the art of tenderizing is, again, like, I think I know more about food than cards, but when you tenderize, you are beating it, like you said, like lightly. You're not smashing it or breaking it. You're not putting the knockout punch, the KO. For the people who are listening to this on podcast, Dan is like shadow boxing, like he is ready to really tenderize someone. Yo, well, that's the people's elbow right there. Watch out. But tenderizing is, you have to be tender. I mean, like, you have to beat it down. But I guess what I'm saying is, a proper negotiation is one where you can be respectful and you can assert your stance as to why something costs a certain amount or why you want it for a certain dollar amount. And I'm not here, like, we're not, my hope is that my content is evergreen and that people can listen to this all, whenever they want. But should we talk about that a little bit more, about how to negotiate in a tender in a tender way? Like, how do you tenderize? Like, are there certain phrases or tactics or tricks where you're not beating someone over the head, you're not brutally, you're not completely taking advantage of them in a deal? Like, how do we tenderize?
Sure. I'll give you a summary, but I've actually made several videos about this on YouTube. So check that out, guys. Another plug for my early informational videos on how to negotiate in the hobby. Okay. But basically, it stems from this. In Southern California, and I'm not even going to be uh, I'm not even going to try to be humble about this. Southern
Don't.
California has one of the best hobby markets
Why
in the
start
country,
now? Why start
in my
now?
opinion, right?
Yeah.
My opinion.
Yeah.
But there's there was a period of time where there was a card show every single week. There were like multiple card shows every single week in Southern California.
Mm,
Lots of people out here, lots of young people, lots of old people in the hobby just doing transactions. And I would describe it as being around sharks. This is an
mm,
area where they back then, maybe it's chilled out a little bit, but back when I got back in the game, they would not hesitate to take advantage of you. You know what I mean? If
mm,
you had a car that was $100, they'll pay $50,
mm,
to get it from you, and they'll beat you down, thinking, they'll beat you down, and they'll take advantage
mm-hmm.
if you could do that.
Yeah.
Okay, and if you don't know any better, then you're gonna get taken advantage of. So when I got back in the game, I really didn't like that. I didn't like
Mhm,
people that said, this is my way, this is the only way to do it. And, they quote comps and all that stuff. I
mhm.
didn't like the aggressive tactics that people were using
Yeah,
to get
same.
deals, right?
Yeah,
Because back then it was all about money, just money, money,
right,
money. I want to make profit, right? I don't care
right.
about you. Very short sighted way of thinking. So I developed my own strategy based on my experience, my professional experience, my personality, where I would negotiate with people in a way where I was basically nice to them. I was
Yeah,
trying to treat them fairly. I was trying to be polite, respectful, And I find that even when you're on opposing sides and you're trying to get the best deal for yourself, if you conduct yourself in a way where you're respectful and nice to a person, then they're more willing to work with you, and you're more likely to be able to get a deal done than if you were just trying to bully them essentially or impose your will on them. So I kind of developed this strategy where when I negotiate with people, I just try to be as fair as possible. I talk to them, I explain my position, I try to understand their position, and I try to structure deals that are fair for both sides where both people feel good about the transaction and they can walk away happy. And, I cover that in a lot of my videos on YouTube, but I came up with the term tenderizing as a way to just kind of make light of that process, just to kind of make fun of it. Like, when I negotiate with you, I'm not trying to beat you down and take advantage of
Mhm.
you. I'm just tenderizing you a little bit,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
tenderizing you so that I can get a deal that I need to work for myself. But at the same
Mhm.
time, I want you to to feel good about it too.
Right. No, that's great. And I know you didn't say this phrase, but what that reminds me of is this term, which again, it's kind of like it's a food term, but that relates to the hobby is meat on the bones. And I'm sure you've bought and sold with other dealers and vendors, and so again, you didn't know these questions ahead of time. I do have my one final ChatGPT question to ask near the end, but can I ask you? You know, would you like to talk some about that term, meat on the bones, for the listenership?
Yes. So, basically, I'm assuming that when you say meat on the bones, if you're in a transaction, you want to leave a little bit of profit, a little bit of room for
Yes,
somebody else to make money on the deal.
exactly,
This is a
exactly.
common mistake I see that a lot of people make in the hobby when you're trying to wheel and deal and transact on a high level, is that a lot of people want top dollar for their cards. If their
Mhm.
card is worth $100 in their mind or based off of a comp,
Yeah,
they want $100 for it.
right.
And the thing is that if they're competing against other people that have that card, then they may not get top dollar because they have to compete against other people, and other people are looking for the best deals. Now, if
Yeah.
you have a rare one of one card that nobody else has, then yeah, you name your price. But for most people, they have cards that other people have also, so they're competing with them. So you have to get get it processed in your mind where you understand that if people are buying cards, unless they're buying it for a collection, they're most likely trying to buy it to, as an investment or to flip or make profit. So you have to understand that's their position, and you have to
Mhm.
try to structure it in a way where they can achieve that interest, where at the same time you achieve your interest of getting, making profit on your card. And that
Mhm.
that will all depend on your cost basis on the card. But a
Mhm.
lot of people ignore that fact. They ignore their cost basis. They may get a card for $1, and the card may have last sold for like $100, and they want to get $100 for it, but they
Mhm.
have the flexibility to give less in order to move that card. And a lot of people just get stubborn about that. So that's another
Mhm.
thing that I talk about in a lot of my videos of just trying to learn and understand your cost basis and understanding the other person's position when you're negotiating. And if you can
Mhm.
do that, you will find that it is way easier to work deals with people. Okay, people
Mhm.
will be more willing to do deals with you immediately and in the future if you
In the
can if
future.
you can take the time to understand their position and leave some meat on the bone for them, if that's what they are, if they're a flipper or reseller or something like that.
Right. No, that's really good. I really appreciate you saying that. And I know you've alluded a lot to your past videos, and I gotta say, I'm a creator now. Like, I'm just too busy. I'm sorry, I haven't watched those old videos.
I've seen your
But
content. You're not that busy.
oh, yes, it hurts because it's true. Okay, so here's the thing. I really like you talking about the rarity of cards and the one of one. Like you mentioned the phrase one of one. And so I did want to ask you, for the newer listeners to this, not newer listeners, everyone's a new listener to this. What am I saying? People who are newer entrants to the hobby, they might see a one of one in a showcase at a local card show, right? And I hope they listen to this, because whether you talk about it or I will, if you're not, I think you will be able to. But could you explain how or why a one of one truly sometimes is not a one of one, and that it's not such a rare thing as people may think it is, to newer entrants in the hobby?
Sure. The term one of one means a card that is numbered one out of one, as opposed to other numbered cards that look the same that are numbered out of 10 or 50 or 100.
Right.
It's a gimmick that the manufacturers, Topps, Panini, and all the other ones, it's
Hmm.
a gimmick that they use to add artificial rarity into their cards and make
Hmm.
people chase those cards. And thus, because they do that, it increases demand, and that's why those cards are worth more money than a card with the same picture, just maybe a different color or a different number
Hmm.
on it. Okay. That's essentially what a one of one is.
Well, I was really hoping to be sponsored by Tops and Panini. There that goes. Thank you very much for just blowing that out of the water.
Can I
But
say this though? Let me just add to this though, okay?
okay.
Because I have a lot of one on ones. One thing that I learned
Humble brag there, but okay.
one thing that I learned later in the game after I spent a ton of money
Yeah. Okay.
is that um when you get into the game, the first part, when you do this and you do it on a high level where you're transacting a lot, you want to make money doing it. It's very tempting to just buy everything, right?
All right.
Just buy everything. Buy a base rookie card, buy a silver prism,
Mm,
buy a numbered out of 99 or numbered out of 50 or whatever.
hmm.
It's very tempting to just buy as much as you can, but everybody eventually always learns that to really protect your money, your investments in this hobby, and to limit the how much you are competing against other sellers or against comps on eBay and things like that, is you gotta buy rarity. That's
Mm,
why the one of ones matter,
mm.
because they're rare. If you have it, you don't have to compete with everybody else, right? So that's why I from now I basically only buy exclusively very rare cards, one of ones or numbered under 10 or very low pop cards that don't transact that much, because rarity is the best way for you to protect your investments, and it's how you can stand out from all the other hundreds of dealers at every show out there that are selling the same thing. If you have the most rare things, that's what gets most attention, and that's where you can make the most money, the highest profit on your cards. Otherwise, you'll always be competing against eBay or the guy next to you that has that same card, and you don't want to play that game.
So that is that's good advice for people who want to sell and vend and flip and all that. But let's say you are a newer entrant into the hobby. Would you say that it is a rite of passage or like a step you have to first take to get to the rarity, to buy the base or the silver or the lower, the colors and the number cards? Or do you think that's something that you could just skip altogether and go straight to like the out of 10 gold vinyls and all that? Like, what do you think about that?
3 years ago, when base cards were worth a lot of money, $1,000 for a Luca base PSA 10 Prism, yeah, you could do that, or
Mm-hmm.
even a silver for that matter,
Mm-hmm.
where a card that had a pop of 500 plus, PSA 10, it was okay. You could do that because they were still worth money. Now, no, I would advise
Mm,
against that, because the landscape is so competitive. The
mm-hmm.
market has been so saturated by these common lower end cards that
Mm,
they're not worth the time and effort to do that.
I
But
see.
this is where I'll have to give you my best advice. Okay,
There we go.
for this
Just
for
only
you.
1 hour in,
Okay,
1 hour in, and let's get
this
to it.
is the nuggets here. This is how you get
Here we
them. You
go.
have to have them engage the entire hour. That's how it helps the algorithm. Okay,
Ah,
watch, okay,
algo. All right,
watch
here we
and
go.
learn from me.
Absorb.
Okay,
I will absorb
okay.
it. Oh.
All right. A lot of people, when they get into the hobby, the first thing that they have the hardest time wrapping their mind around is the prices.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, a card is worth $1,000, 10, 5,000, $10,000.
Yeah.
Most people, a card is worth like $1 to them, right? That's what
Yeah.
they have in their mind. $20, maybe $100. Oh my god, this guy's
Mm-hmm.
paying $2,300 for this PSA 10 of whatever card. They can't wrap their mind around the prices.
Yeah.
So, but they want to get in. It's fun to them. It looks sexy. They want to get in on it. So they start off low. They buy these base cards for $20, $100, a couple $100, whatever, but the margin on those things is so thin, and they
Mm-hmm.
quickly develop a risk tolerance, where they start going higher, higher and higher and higher. So
Mm-hmm.
the sooner you can get from point A, where you're buying that low end stuff,
Mhm.
to point B where you're buying, you know,
Mm.
high end stuff where you can make really good profit on, the sooner you can close that gap, the better off you'll be. And the hardest part of
Mm.
that is really just in your mind of processing spending that type of money. And I'll give you another example. Okay. You said you love food, right? If you
Mhm.
really love food, right, you would have no problem paying maybe $100 for a steak, $500 for the best steak in the world, or whatever, right? If you really love food. If you don't
Mm.
value food, then you don't want to pay more than $10 for a meal, for lunch or for dinner. $10,
Yeah.
$20, right?
Yeah.
It's all about perception.
Oh.
As long as you can process in your mind that these cards are valuable and you understand the art of buying, selling, trading, and making a profit, then
Mm.
there's no difference in the process from buying a $10 card to buying a $10,000 card. It's the same
Mm.
process. It's just in your mind. Are you willing to take on that risk? Do you have the funds, the resources to do that? And the
Right.
quicker you can get from that point A to point B, the more successful you'll be in the hobby.
I like that a lot. I will say I don't think I'll ever buy a $500 steak or meal, but I mean, who knows? If I sell enough cards, maybe I can. Um, I really like the idea of the point A to point B because I think the quickest way from point A to point B is a straight line, and there's that saying, as the crow flies. It's almost like if you fly over buildings, you can get to from one place to another. But when you go through streets or roads, pedestrian walkways, driving, you have to go around structures. And I feel like sometimes, yeah, some of these roadblocks or structures can be artificially placed, and some of them are stuff that we do to ourselves. And maybe in the year 2023, again, I'm trying to be evergreen content, and who knows how much of this will hold up, but maybe there is a strong, good argument for skip these unnecessary steps along the way. Now, I say that in a crazy way because the whole premise of my podcast is stop and smell the roses, try these different things out. But when it comes to the buying, selling, and trading, I mean, BTS, the buying, trading, selling, maybe there are certain things that you don't have to vend or flip or navigate so that you can get to your final destination quicker. Well, not final destination, but I think what I'm saying is I get your points and I really do like your insight. And
It,
maybe I will stop buying
yeah.
junk.
Let me add to that too. Not to say that it's wrong to buy a $1 card. It just depends on what level you want to be on in the game. If you
Hmm.
want to just collect for fun, that
Right.
stuff is entry level product. That
Yes.
stuff, that's retail product that you buy at
Right.
Target, right?
Right.
And it's meant for that. It's not meant for you to make money and start a business and quit your day job to do that.
That is
To
true.
get to that next level, you got to start buying the higher end stuff, right? So
Yes.
you can't think that you're going to set up. For example, we'll go back to the Dallas Card Show. You can't think that you're going to set up at the Dallas Card Show, spend money on the table, the cases, the hotel, and all that other stuff.
Hmm.
If you're going to be flipping, cards that are like $100, it's just
Mm.
not feasible. You
Mm.
won't be able to turn the cards quick enough to do that. So it depends. If you want to be a dealer, then you've got to have inventory where it's going to be worth your time and the overhead cost. If you want to start a side business, then you've got to be on a level where you're making enough money to support your lifestyle. You know,
Right.
if you want to quit your day job, it's even higher than that. If you don't
Right.
want to do any of that stuff, if you just want to be a collector and enjoy the
Yeah.
hobby, then yeah, you could buy, 10-cent cards and just still have
Right.
enough time. But everybody wants to be everybody has this conception. They watch YouTube videos, they watch all these guys on the vlogs that are flippers. They want to
Hmm.
be that guy. They want to be out there doing $1,000 transactions. But if you don't have the right mindset to do that,
Yeah.
you're going to get yourself in trouble. You know what I mean? You're going to
Right.
buy a bunch of stuff that loses value, or you can't move, and you're going to become disenchanted, and you're going to start pointing fingers at people saying
That's
that
what
they
people do.
misled you. And
Right.
so I just try to tell people, look, the best way to kind of get started if you want to be in this game, buying, selling, trading, is you've got to do the research, watch, and restrain yourself from spending a lot of money on things that won't get you the return until
Yeah.
until you truly understand the process and you're ready to put in the work.
Yeah, I didn't do a good job of setting this conversation up because yes, that is the big disclaimer is with buying, trading, and selling. Right now, we're talking about selling. Your expertise is being a vendor and dealer in real life, local card shows and regional card shows. And so I know personally as a dealer, like as someone who has dealt, I don't put in my showcases cards that I collect and I love. Like I'm not putting my Jordan cards out there. I'm putting cards that I want to sell or move in my showcases. I know there's definitely arguments to be made to put in some of your nicer pieces as showstoppers or people to kind of like, window shop and go, "Ooh, look at that." And, how much is that? And, it's not for sale or a really high dollar amount. But yes, this whole part that we've been talking about really is if you want to sell to make profit, like don't buy base and silvers if you don't have to. If you're looking to eventually flip, again, just being a short term definition of selling, and investing is just a longer term, and eventually you may sell that off. So thank you for that insight. I really do appreciate it. Now I meant to ask earlier, you mentioned pop, and the seasoned veterans, the intermediates, the people who are considered intermediate learners. I don't know. People who have been here for a while, they'll know what pop is. But for the newer listeners, God, I said it, newer listeners again, the newer entrants into the hobby, could you please explain what pop count or pop is?
Yes, pop just is short for population of the card. The companies that grade the card, PSA, SGC, BGS, and whatever other company, CSG,
Mm-hmm.
they keep census reports on the number of cards that they grade and what grades they are. So
Mm-hmm.
the lower the population report on a card, the more rare it is. So for example, like a PSA 10, Nike promo card of Jordan, for example, is a pop
Mm-hmm.
170 for PSA
Mm,
10. I know I have that card. So that means
mm.
there's only
A humble brag again.
170
Okay.
of those cards that are graded currently in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes it relatively rare compared to the PSA 9, which there may be like a 900 of them out
Mm.
there. And again, going back to my earlier point, you want to buy rarity because you don't want to
Mm-hmm.
compete with other people. If you
Mm.
buy a card, I'll give you another example. I used to, one of my biggest mistakes is I invested heavily in Kobe Bryant 1996 Topps paper cards, PSA 9s.
Oh, that's what I
Invested
have.
heavily.
Oh.
Spent like 13 grand on like 13 of them
Uh,
or whatever, something like that. And I thought to myself, it's Kobe Bryant. Everybody
yeah.
wants a Kobe Bryant rookie card. At the time,
Yeah.
the pop count was 10,000. And I thought to
Yeah.
myself, there's at least 10,000 people out there that would pay for this card, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the pop count kept growing to like 13. Now I think it's like a 15,000 or something like maybe even more. And even then, I would think there's at least 15,000 Kobe Bryant rookie collectors out there, right? That would want that card, of course, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there are, but the problem is when there's so many out there, they transact more very heavily. And because they transact, that sets the market value. So when I bought into those cards, they were like $1,000 a piece. Now they're like, I didn't even look. They're probably like $100 each or something, like $300 for a PSA 9 or something like that, probably lower. I see you looking around. You probably have some.
I feel terrible right
Yes.
now.
And that was probably my biggest loss because they just transacted too much. And Kobe Bryant is one of them. Zion Prisms are another. Luca Prisms, all those guys, all that high pop stuff. Basically, if the
Mm,
pop is like over 100,
mm,
it's or if it's close to the PSA 9 pop, whatever that is,
mhm.
then that's too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying, and but the the additional thing I want to say to that is I have some cards that I either created myself or I purchased where it's like literally a pop one, the only one that was graded by PSA and is a PSA 10. And what I realize is it's because it's a such a such a bad card that no one in their right mind, except for this one person, whether it was me being crazy myself or another crazy person, decided to submit that card in for grading and get a grade back. So I do want to just add to what you said, and with a caveat that just because, let's say you have a dealer who shows you the pop report, pulls out the PSA or the BGS app, and says, "Look at this, it's a pop one. It's such a rare card." Pop reports, very valid point about how, for the really nice cards, the higher you go up in the grade, you can have, like, the thinner the air comes, and the lower the pop count is. But I gotta say, I do have some pop 1, 2, and 3 cards of PSA 10 where no one in the right mind would have graded that. So, and I'm
Oh
not
yeah,
going to say specifics because I'm too
just
embarrassed.
just to address that point, yes, some cards, if you see that are the pop one and they're old cards,
Hmm.
like 10 years old, it's probably because
Yeah.
nobody wanted to grade it. You're right. Okay. And this is, but like you have the only one out there that's a PSA 10. So if somebody wants it, they got to pay your price to get it. But this is a trick that I use, a strategy that I use to determine whether that would be fair or not. Is
Hmm.
basically you just look online to see if you can find the raw version of that card,
Yep.
and see how much it is. If,
Yeah.
if the raw version is like $5 or less,
Hmm.
then it's worth you taking the risk to buy it, a really good copy,
Hmm.
pay $15, $20 or whatever it is to grade it. Maybe you get
Yeah.
a PSA 10 too.
Yeah.
If the raw cards are several $100s, okay, and you don't want to take that risk, and the card that that person has is just a little bit higher than that, sometimes it's worth paying just to get the grade that you know you're going to get versus the risk of getting like a 9 or some other grade.
Hmm. Oh my goodness. I just realized as my first guest, I'm just letting this conversation go wherever we want. But I did plan on having a future episode with an expert in the grading, like a group subber or something. But I love that we're talking about this. I mean, you do have a lot of expertise in a lot of these areas. I think I just have to have you on another time. I cannot believe we are 77 minutes into this. It's an hour more than I said I was going to give you. So I could talk to you clearly for 2 hours, but in the interest of the time and viewership, and maybe leaving some meat on the bones for you next time to come, I think I'm going to try and wrap it up and briefly talk about trade night, and then give you the chat GPT question, and we can call it. Um, Trade night. I think you and I have talked about this. I went to my first trade night and I was overwhelmed because I thought it was literally just trading, and I I think it's a misnomer. I haven't been to many trade nights. I've been to, like a couple, and I've done some. People like to call them online trade nights, or people like to trade on, Instagram and online. But could you tell me, please, your experience with what you have done with trade night?
Sure. So trade nights are they're not they're not an old thing. They have not always been around.
Hmm.
They've usually, trade nights are pretty much a new concept for card shows. That's why a lot of card shows don't have really good trade nights. Okay, in
Mm,
comparison to what I would say Dallas. Dallas has probably the best trade nights because it's basically like another card show that goes way into the AM real late. But basically, trade nights, like you said, it's not just trading anymore. It's just another place for you to transact with cards. But the thing that's unique about trade nights is that you don't have that disadvantage of being a dealer and a person walking around. There's no
mm,
tables. You take the
mm,
table away, suddenly you're on an even playing ground with everybody else there,
mm-hmm,
and it changes the dynamic of how you do deals. But with that said, I would say some of the best deals that I've ever done have been at trade night because
mm,
there is not that table there in front of you. The only difference is you have to hustle more. There's
mm.
probably less people there, less foot traffic, but you can get really, really good deals at trade night that you couldn't get normally at a show.
Okay, so again, I guess we're going back to this the physical and figurative concept of tables and the power of the tables. Maybe that's like something I could talk about later or make content around the power of the table. But though the first trade night I went to was kind of like table set up where people could sit. And I guess you could kind of like sit on either side, but basically it was first come, first serve. So the reason there is equality between people in trade night is there's no table fees, but at least for the ones that I've been to, there are actual tables, and whoever gets through the door first gets to sit and set up almost like, like a free
Hmm.
table. Like, I don't think there's going to be renting of showcases and like elaborate setups, and like, I think some people do try to move sealed wax in trade nights, but in
Let me just tell
general,
you real quick at the
yeah.
Dallas Card Show, It's like another card show at night. Some people bring out their display cases and put it there. I at the last Dallas card show, I'm not joking. I'll send you a picture. A
Hmm.
dude was so desperate to set up that he made a table out of cardboard and he set up and he killed it. I know the guy.
Wow.
He killed it. So it gets crazy now, the way that these trade nights have
So,
evolved.
so there are tables though. So you do agree or admit that in Dallas Card Show Trade Night there are tables and chairs. So it's not like hotel
Yes.
ballrooms where I mean I've seen pictures of National like last year and the year before where people are literally just like on this dusty carpet, just like dirty, grimy. People are just like leaning against the walls in the lobbies of hotels and doing trades that way.
Yeah,
But
we don't
like,
care. We don't care. We just want to do the deal. It doesn't matter if it's in a parking lot. If there's a trade night going on and if people are
yeah,
wheeling and dealing, we don't care. We'll
okay.
do it.
But so people that so it's free, right? That's the big thing. Usually there's pizza, like just like someone chips in and gives free pizza out to people, if they're sponsoring it. There's buy so people. Would you agree? One of the big tips for trade night, even though it's trading, is bring cash, right?
Yes, cash is king.
Cash is king. Um, what else? So people bring there's I mean dealers can be in trade night, the public can be in the trade night. So people just bring their stuff, right? Just people and people are just there to transact, whether it's with money or their card raw cards or slapped cards, right? Okay.
Everything's fair game at trade night. There are tables. Literally, there are tables there, but there is no distinction between a vendor or
Mm-hmm.
a person that's just attending the show. Everybody's on an equal playing ground.
Mm,
So you can sit at anybody's table, you can talk to anybody that you want there
mm-hmm.
and just try to work a deal.
Gotcha. All right. So I said I would be brief on trading. It is the kind of like the sometimes an afterthought of the BTS buying, trading, selling. But in the interest of time, I am going to move on to the final question I have for you, and then we can do a little mini wrap up, which will probably take 30 minutes. Are you ready? And I think I did share this with you beforehand. Um, well, you are ready. I don't know where else are going to go. Okay.
I'm always ready. I was born
I
ready.
you were born you were born in the womb. You were collecting in the womb.
That's right.
You were
That's right.
collecting
I'm
amniotic
always
fluid.
ready to talk hobby, to give advice, to talk
Yeah,
shit about
you
people.
there it's like multifaceted. It's
Yes. That's,
you are
I
yeah.
am the hardest working man in the hobby, as they like to say.
You know, I got to address that. I mean, no one takes nicknames that you create for yourself seriously. I would never do that as Hobby S Thompson. Like Denny Cards, like I would never create a nickname for myself, So um yeah. Okay. So here we go.
But you just did, though.
Well, you're not I'm the host. I'm the host. You can't call me out. Can't call me out. All right.
Oh, all right.
I plugged in your name into Chat GPT. I'm not trying to neg you.
Okay. I
Maybe I
do have a
am.
common name, though.
They they didn't know who you are. They said Great Curator. What is that? That's
Well,
this, that, and the
Hobby Chat GPT or whatever it is. It's not up to date. It does not
other.
search the internet. It has a baseline of knowledge
Uh-huh.
that it has, but it's not like current internet stuff.
Well, when the robots and computers come to take over mankind, they're gonna come after you first for saying that. They're insulted. Um, you know what? There should be something called like Hobby GPT. How awesome would that be? You just put in hobby related content questions. Okay. Oh my gosh, let me get to it. All right. Can you share a memorable experience or defining moment that has shaped your journey in buying, selling, and trading sports and pop culture cards? This question allows your guest to reflect on a specific experience or moment that had a significant impact on their personal or professional growth. It provides an opportunity for storytelling, insight into their expertise, and allows listeners to connect with their journey. It can lead to fascinating anecdotes, lessons learned, and inspiring narratives that resonate with your audience. That's the question.
Sure. Okay. Am I limited to one? Can I give like two, maybe three?
I literally gave you this question ahead of time. Literally. It's the one thing. Okay, you know what? Yes, please. You are the guest. I should be more accommodating. I'm like host of this house and podcast. Yes, the great curator. You can give me as many as you'd like.
Okay, I'm going to give you three examples. Okay, that
Three.
I'm going to cover a spectrum here.
Okay, here we go.
Maybe four. Okay, so in the beginning,
Really pushing it there.
when I was setting up at card shows, I was making $1,000, maybe a couple $1,000 each
Humble
show,
brag again.
whatever.
Okay. Yep.
And it was cool, but then I started to ask myself if this is worth my time. Is it worth my time and effort to do this, to make a couple $1,000 to sit there for 6 hours or whatever it is, make a
Mm-hmm.
couple $1,000? And I wasn't sure if my inventory was like the right inventory that I was buying that people wanted. But
Mm-hmm.
what really kind of set me on this path where I fell in love with being a vendor at shows
Mm-hmm.
is I was set up at this Las Vegas card show that was inside a mall. This is early in my vendor career, and it was a terrible card show, terrible experience. I will never go to a card show in a mall. It's very like bush league. They put me like underneath this window. I had the sun beating down on me and my cards for like 5 hours. I was pissed, and it was like the worst. I barely sold a couple $100 worth because there was like no foot traffic. And then towards the end of the show, like the last like hour of the show, this dude comes in, looks at my showcase, picks like eight of my highest end cards and buys everything from me. Barely any negotiation at all. Pays me like $24,000 cash. He puts it on the table, stacks of hundreds bills and $2,000, rubber bands. And I could not believe it. It's the most cash I've ever seen before in hand, most money I've ever sold anything for. And I
And
took
it was
that money.
fake.
I spent it all already, so who knows?
Okay,
But
so okay.
I took that
Took that
money and
money.
I was like, I ran afterwards. I packed up my case and I left Alex because I was so scared that I had all this cash. Right,
Yeah,
I thought I was going to get robbed or something.
totally.
And I was I packed up all my stuff and I was driving home and I was eating dinner. I was like reflecting. I was like, wow, I can do this.
Mm.
I can be a vendor, and if I have the right cards and I know how to make deals, I can make money doing this, right? And that set me on a path where I created like this small business of buying, selling, trading cards. So that was a really cool experience, and that kind of led me to understand that no matter how bad a card show can be, all it really takes is one good deal to make the whole
Mm.
day for you, make the whole month, or whatever it is. So that kind of gave me that perspective on what it's like to be a dealer.
That was really nice for Jeff Wilson to do, by the way. That's just such a
No, it was just
heartwarming
some dude.
story.
I've never seen him ever again. Never seen this
Man,
guy ever again. And I've been to a couple other Vegas shows, just never seen him in it. But if you're watching this, thank you.
he's not. There's no
Yeah,
way. Yeah.
he set in motion who I am today. To be honest, from that
What an
experience.
origin story.
Yeah, of me being a
So
vendor, anyways. Of
if
me
people
being a
don't like
vendor.
you, they can blame that person then.
This
Yeah.
is even before content. This is before I made content at all. So
Wow.
nobody knew who I was. I was just like some dude.
You're
But
the
he
good curator.
set me on that path.
Okay.
Then
Number two.
when I was buying cards, I was, like I said, we were talking before, I was buying like common cards, sports cards, things like this, just chasing money, just chasing profit.
Mm.
I see a trend going for like John Morant cards. Okay, go buy John Morant cards. Go buy, whatever it is, this prospect, these guys, right?
Yeah.
Then I met some guy that lives in my area. He goes by Ultimate Pastime. His name is Mark, Ultimate Pastime. Hobby OG. Been here for like 30, 40 years.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
He has this phrase, which I've kind of appropriated from him. He has this phrase as buy what you like. Buy what you like. And I've had many conversations with him.
Mm-hmm.
Brief but heart-to-heart conversations where he's like, this is a hobby, dude. We have this crazy cycle right now. We have a lot of hype, but if you just stick to buying things that you like, you can never go wrong. You can never go wrong. And those words resonated with me a lot, to where I kind of shifted my strategy from chasing profit, chasing what
Mm.
everybody else was chasing and just trying to keep up and not get left behind, to actually buying things that I enjoy. And that's when you started seeing me buy like Marvel cards, Star Wars cards, other things that I enjoy. And all the stuff that I have here is a result
Mhm.
of him setting me on that path. And that's when I really shifted away from sports cards into pop culture
Mm.
cards, because that's where I feel most comfortable. So I attribute a lot of what I am, of my collection and my inventory, and how I've evolved as a buyer, to my interactions with Mark from
Wow.
that.
Okay.
And
That's really
then,
nice. Okay.
yes, and then as a content creator, there's two stories I'll share with you. One story is, like we talked about earlier, how a small minority of idiots out there make videos about me and they troll me, right?
Mhm.
In the beginning, when they did that, my natural instinct as a person was to fight back.
Mm.
And I would engage with these fools, and I would make memes about them. I would get them real good. I would get them real
Yeah.
good. They get real pissed off. And I would get into this habit of just like sniping at them and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And one day I was making this meme, and I spent like 35 minutes making this meme, editing it and all that stuff. And I was like, haha, I'm gonna get them. And I just realized, like, damn, I just wasted like half an hour fighting with this guy who I don't know at all, on the other side of the country or something like that. What am I doing?
Yeah.
And it gave me the perspective that, like, the hobby is not about, it's not about that. It's not about attacking people. It's not about
Yeah.
getting wrapped up in these online beasts with people that you have, that don't know, that you'll never meet. It's about positive interactions like what I'm having with you, buying,
Mhm.
selling, trading, making profit, having fun.
Mhm.
It's not about getting in fights and over over stupid stuff, hobby stuff. So that gave me a
Yeah.
perspective. So that's why I kind of pivoted from my position where I would make fun of people, attack people, to where I just try to be more positive and try to set a good example. But don't get me wrong, I got a lot of jokes, and I'm locked and loaded. And sometimes I will take shots at people if they get step over the line. But for the most part, I try to restrain myself, because I feel like I don't want to lower myself to their level. And then my
Yeah.
last example that I'll tell you, which is what really put me over the top, is
Mhm.
I went to the Toronto Sports Card Expo last year,
Mhm.
and it was a not a great experience for me from a turn in the terms of being a dealer there. It was just very difficult to sell cards. It's a totally different environment being
Mhm.
out in Canada. But
Mhm.
the highlight of the show for me was this little kid. His name's Mason, a little Asian kid, came up to me, and he was like 10 years old, and he knew who I was. He watched all my content. He came with his
Mm.
mom, and his mom told me, yeah, he loves you. He watches all your stuff. And he was
Oh.
so excited to meet me. And I was like, what? This little kid watches my stuff on YouTube and Instagram? And he's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And and I started collecting Star Wars cards because of you. And
Oh.
you know, um, he just, he's like, he just loved me. He looked up to me. And I felt like I instantly felt a connection with him, like this is like my little brother or something, a little nephew.
Mm.
And I gave
Mm.
him a Star Wars card for free. It wasn't worth that
Mhm.
much, but
Yeah,
he
base.
he 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 thought it was like, you thought I would give him a one of one super fractor or something. He was so excited.
Wow.
And it was like a 3-day show, and he came back every single day, talked to me like for like 10-15 minutes until his mom dragged him away. And I still keep in contact with him from time to time. I watch his content. He starts making content now. I've sent him
Mm.
gifts for Christmas, things like that. but
Oh my
but that
gosh.
interaction with him kind of told me, okay, I need to make sure that I set a positive example for people. I don't know who's watching me. Little kids are probably watching me. So I want to make sure that my content is fun, entertaining, engaging. And I set the example of the type of people that I want to come into this hobby. If little kids are watching this
Mhm.
and they're learning from my mannerisms and the things that I do, I want them to I want to set a good example for them. So that's why I try to like create content that's kind of like fun, lighthearted, somewhat educational, but I try to set a positive example instead of like lowering myself in the gutter with all the trash and getting in these stupid beefs. I try not to do that, because I don't want people to see that and think that that's the norm.
Well, that was really not cool for Jeff Wilson to do that after buying all your cards, just trolling you. but you guys are good friends now, I guess, so that's good. But yeah, no, I gotta say that's a side of you that people don't know. Again, it's like I was like, like I think we're all somebody, but some of us are hobby nobodies or whatever. But like, I didn't have anything, and we just talked, and you gave me your time, and that was really nice of you. Um, I Wait, let me ask you: did you sign that card for the kid, or did he like? Did
The
you just
card
like
I gave? No, I gave him a Star Wars card.
Yeah, but like, did you just like slap a sticker auto on it with your initials?
No, 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 no.
Oh,
But
you should have that ready.
he did take a couple pictures with me. I did charge his mom for that though. But
That's good. No,
yeah,
capitalism, baby.
I had to make
No,
my. It was a slow show.
yeah, slow show. It's
Yeah,
Toronto. I mean,
$5.
it's your
It's nothing.
Canadian money. I don't even
Yeah,
know how that
it's five
conversion
Canadian
works.
dollars. It's like 430 US.
Wow, that's
One
so.
thing, can I comment on that real thing?
Go ahead.
You keep mentioning.
Mentioning.
I can't. We're going on too long. I'm like stuttering
Yeah,
now.
no, I am
You
so
keep
tired. It
mentioning.
is
Yeah,
literally 12:46
yeah.
right now. I am. I you
Don't you have
we
to
s-
work? Don't you have to go
Let's
to
not talk
work?
about that. No,
Okay.
I mean,
All right.
well, I'm gonna
You
get
keep
sick from
mentioning
this. So yeah,
how you reached out to me in the beginning and I
yeah,
talked to you. Okay.
yeah,
First of
yeah.
all, I thought you were just like some guy trying to scam me in the beginning. Okay. Because you wanted to, like, you said you were in California. You wanted to meet me. And I'm like, who the hell is this guy? You're like, hey,
Yes.
you're like, we have a connection. I'm Asian too. Come on,
Oh, I get
And
okay.
I was like,
Edit this out.
okay, this guy's a weirdo.
Okay.
But
Yeah. No, that's true.
I checked you out a little bit. I was like, all right, he's just really out there, and he just wants to get to know me. And but the reason like you said, I gave up my time to talk to
Yeah.
you was because I try to help people as much as I can. If you're
Yeah.
coming to me
Yeah.
and you're not trying to take advantage of me. You're not trying to get me to buy your stuff or whatever, but you just
Hmm.
want to ask me questions or you want to get to know me or you appreciate the content that I'm putting out and that you're
Yeah.
consuming. I will talk to you. I
Yeah.
respond to almost all my DMs
Mm.
out there. I respond to almost all the comments on my YouTube and everything like that. Everybody that
Hmm.
I meet, I try to have a positive interaction with them because if they're supporting me somehow by following me, watching my content, then I want to make sure that
Yeah.
I'm there as a resource to the best of my ability for them. And sometimes that's just a brief conversation. Sometimes that conversation develops into a friendship like me and you,
Yeah.
or sometimes it doesn't. But I always try to
Right.
make myself available at the best I can because I think that that's what the hobby is about. We all need to try to help people. It's in my early mission statements on all my videos where I talk about setting a very high standard of conduct, high level of civility within the hobby that we hold
Hmm.
each other accountable to. And
Yeah.
if I can do this to people, then I hope that they will also do that and set that high standard for the next person. So that's kind of like why I did that. And look, it's developed into a friendship. We talk to each other, we text. I'm doing this show for you. I'm
Yeah.
seeing you grow. And hopefully it's really my sincere intention that you will continue to be consistent with your content and you will grow and you'll be an example for other people out there and they'll follow you. And we have more stuff like this versus, trash content that's trying to tear people down.
Yeah.
We don't need any more of that. We need more long form discussions, positive engagement,
This is
and
long.
friendships.
Yeah. Well, I'm really sorry to break the news to you, but this whole time we've been talking, it's been a long con. I've been meaning to get a hold of you to talk to you about your car's extended warranty. Um,
I don't even have a car.
Whoa! Breaking news. That's gonna go in the show notes, I
Yeah,
think. How do you oh God, it's just so late. It's like 12:50. How do you not have a car in California?
we have
That
a
is
car.
car country.
I work well. We have a family car, but I work primarily from home. So I just gave it up,
All
lower my
right.
carbon footprint, and there I am.
Okay. I see. I'm so tired. I can't even make a joke about that. I want to say, like, in all sincerity, I did joke to you before the show saying, hey, I think I can turn your villain edit into go from a heel to a face. Um,
I like being a
there.
heel though.
I know
I
you
like
you
pissing
said
people
that.
off.
you are genuinely a good dude in the hobby, and I hope people get to listen. There's who the heck is listening this far into this? They must be like on the longest run or must
You're
have
gonna
the
have to
worst traffic.
cut it up in digestible
I don't want
segments.
to. I don't want to edit.
Okay.
Ugh. Okay, I'll talk about. I'll think about it.
Yeah.
You help me out, or I'll pay you to edit or whatever it is. Here's the thing.
Use a Chat GPT to do it for you. They have
Thank.
AI programs for that.
All right. Thank you.
Opus.
I
Opus.
want to say in closing, I just want to say you, much as people may see you, and I think people just don't get the joke, the inside joke. I think there's a big part of you where it's things are done tongue in cheek, but some people just take it way too seriously or way too literally, and it's almost like they don't have the humoristic intelligence. See that's probably really bad, but I don't even
Okay.
know how to explain it. But they're
Okay.
just not. They're not. They don't have the social cues to understand what a joke is. So
Yeah, I
anyway,
don't know if there's a condition for that, but some people, I joke when I say I'm the hardest working man in the hobby, even though I probably spend a lot of time in the hobby. Okay, but it's clearly a joke, and some people take it
yeah,
seriously,
I know.
where they'll make posts. This fool thinks he's the hardest working man in the hobby. This fool, thinks he works harder than me or whatever.
Hmm.
There's some people that take that literally, and I used to think it was so stupid. But now I think that it's actually a condition because I was
Mm,
at a WrestleCon, a wrestling
hmm.
convention set up as a
Yeah,
vendor,
yeah.
and there's this guy cosplaying as Hulk Hogan. He's probably
Mm,
about 5'6", skinny, but he's dressed up in Hulk Hogan gear and walking
hmm.
around. And I was jokingly, because I was on camera, I was jokingly said, "Oh my God, it's Hulk Hogan!" Right? And this guy right next to me is like, "That's not Hulk Hogan." And I'm like, "It's
Wow.
Hulk Hogan." He's like, "Are you stupid? It's not Hulk Hogan." And then that's when it clicked in my head that, oh shit, there's like guys out there that don't understand
Mm,
sarcasm. There
right.
must be a condition for it. I don't know what it is. I'm not trying to make fun of these people, but
Yeah.
I realize that there are some people that take everything literally,
Hmm.
and that's how they react. So
Yeah.
I'm more kind of like lenient on some people when I see things like that. I'm more, if they have that type of condition where they just don't understand sarcasm.
I will refrain from making a joke about that as well. I will focus on the wonderful positivity that you do exude. And I am just so tired. Why did you make me wait this late? Oh, talent. These people who think they're just so but you are on the West Coast. Okay, here's the thing. I'm gonna wrap this up. You know what? I just realized I'll just make this into a two-parter. I'll have like a first part. I'll put that as a podcast, and then do the second one just to give people a little bit of a breather. I did say in my show notes, if you ever need to take a break, let's take a break. We didn't do that. We just powered through. I cannot believe that this is an hour and 45 minutes. Dan, the great curator, you are a positive force for good in the hobby. I can resoundingly say that. There are people who just don't get it. I am here to really learn from folks like you, and you're only my first guest. And I hope that my future guests are equally as entertaining and informative, the infotainment, if you will. But they're going to have really big shoes to fill in that regard, I think, because you're an excellent, excellent first guest. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your knowledge. I can't even end this with sarcasm. Like I said, I'm just way too tired. So thank you again. And after I press end record, you will tell me what to do with this so I can push it out to the platforms.
Yes, yes. I am the executive producer of this show now.
You are the captain now.
Yes. Thank you for
All right.
having me, and thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next time.
You're doing my sign off now? Oh my gosh. All right. Bye.